Welcome back. We're jumping into some really fascinating sources you send over, focusing on Mexican history, race, governance.
That's right.
And our mission today, really, is to connect the dots between a specific, pretty brutal event in the 19th century, an assassination, and, well, the kind of systemic corruption we still see traces of.
Yeah, it's a connection that's often missed, I think, but it's absolutely crucial.
So, independence wasn't straightforward, was it?
Not at all. You have this fundamental tension. On one side, the Criollo elite, the American-born whites. They wanted political autonomy, sure, but mainly, to keep their wealth and power intact.
Right, but then the actual fighters, the masses, indigenous peoples, mestizos, Afro-Mexicans, they weren't just fighting over Trey's laws or who sat in Mexico City.
Exactly. They were fighting for something much more radical, real social liberation. They wanted to tear down that whole colonial racial hierarchy.
And that brings us to Vicente Guerrero. He seems absolutely central here, though maybe sometimes overlooked.
Definitely central. Okay. And often minimized, yeah. To get why he was such a threat, you have to see where he came from. Lower strata, mixed heritage, mulatto, and indigenous. Started as a muleteer, an arriero.
An arriero.
And he rose purely on military ability to become the leader of the insurgency. And then, critically, the Republic's second president in 1829.
Which must have terrified the old guard, because their entire system, the Sistema de Castas.
Yes, exactly. It wasn't just social snobbery, it was the literal architecture of colonial power, built on this idea of limpieza de sangre, purity of blood.
So your whiteness or perceived whiteness directly determined your wealth, your rights, your standing, everything.
Pretty much, yeah. And what made Guerrero and his movement so radical was their outright rejection of those categories. It wasn't just talk. His army was the marginalized castas.
So when they negotiated the Plan of Iguala in 1821...
their military strength forced the issue. Equal citizenship became a non-negotiable demand. They put it right in there.
Which sets the stage for his presidency.
Oh, well.
Only 9 months in 1829, you said.
Just 9 months. But it was like an earthquake for the elite. A direct assault on the old colonial order.
Was the abolition of slavery the main trigger for them, or just the final straw?
It was probably the most consequential act, and certainly the most alarming for the aristocracy. September 15th, 1829, he abolishes slavery everywhere in the Republic.
Huge. And that directly hit the wallets of the white elite, especially in those border territories.
Absolutely. Plus, it instantly made Mexico this beacon, a refuge for people escaping slavery in the U.S. A double threat, really.
You can feel the elite's panic in the sources. They saw this mixed-race leader championing the masses as an existential threat.
Oh, completely. They despised him. The sources mentioned they called him Black Guerrero, pejoratively. It was pure racial animosity mixed with class fear.
That really lays bare the motivation for what came next, doesn't it? The racism.
It does. In 1830, his own vice president, Anastasio Bustamante, turns on him, betrays him.
Leads to his capture.
And execution. Firing squad in 1831. A bold-faced act of, racist political terror.
And that moment, it feels like the door slams shut on that more radical, egalitarian possibility for the Republic.
It really did. It sort of cemented this tradition. Elite violence is okay if it's preserving race-based privilege. And the immediate result, look at the land ownership.
That figure is staggering.
Isn't it? After they got rid of Guerrero and consolidated power, something like 800 Creole families ended up owning 97% of the entire country.
97%?
That's the consolidation of the old racial hierarchy into pure economic power. The legacy of the execution wasn't just political, it was deeply structural economic.
And there's the link. That's the channel connecting to modern corruption. Because that historical stratification, it didn't just vanish.
No way. Modern inequality still maps onto those old colonial color lines. We have data showing individuals identified as dark brown today are almost 36% less likely to reach top jobs professional employer than white individuals.
25.9%, yeah.
That gap persists.
Yeah.
And it fuels a certain mindset in that entrenched, homogenous elite. Power isn't earned, it's inherited, it's their right.
So state resources become almost like private assets.
Exactly. That's the elite exploitative model of corruption. Impunity isn't a bug. It's a feature. It's built in to protect the powerful, the inheritors of that old Criollo status.
So, wrapping this up, Guerrero embodies both things. That initial promise of liberation, and also its violent betrayal.
Precisely. And the fight against corruption in Mexico today, you can't really understand it without seeing its roots in dismantling these inherited racial and economic monopolies.
Which leaves us with a final thought, something for you, the listener, to consider.
Yeah, think about this. What if Guerrero's vision, that radical idea of mass democracy, maybe even land redistribution, what if that had actually won out back in 1831?
Would Mexico still have developed this sort of authoritarian, centralized political culture based on personal loyalties?
Or could it perhaps have built the kind of professional, nonpartisan institutions that, well, many argue it still struggles to fully establish today?
Yeah.
Something to mull over.